scripture this morning is found in the book of Esther, which is in the Old Testament, as you know. I'll be reading from Esther, the 4th chapter, and Esther, the 9th chapter, as on the screen. In your pew Bibles, it will be on page number 491. Beginning Esther, the 4th chapter, and reading verses 6 through 17. Now Haggai went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay to the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and to explain to her, and he told him to urge her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Haggai went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, "All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the golden scepter to him and to spare his life. For 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king." When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows that you have come to this royal position for such a time as this?" Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, "Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. And then turning over to chapter 9, I'm going to be reading verses 20 through 22. Chapter 9, verses 20 through 22. Mordecai reported these events and sent letters to all the Jews throughout the province of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate annually the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar as the time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned into joy and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe the days as the days of feasting and joy, and giving presents of food to one another and gifts to the poor. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word.